I have heard that there's, that speculation of people who are in the LGBTQIA, community also have a very strong correlation to neurodivergence, and that there may, in fact, kind of be
some connections.
Yeah.
Well, let's think about it this way. Here's a simple way. When I was taking human anatomy classes, we were talking, of course, about average anatomy, but no human being actually really has average anatomy. Average, like when you look at the skeleton in the textbook or the muscles in the textbook, they're showing you averaged, meaning they're going to take the measurements for all of the things, they're going to take the way they generally appear and kind of conflate them together.
Yeah.
That's not really how we show up in the world. Diversity is the norm. Variation is the norm. So that said, one of the things that we learned in anatomy was, some people are born with different counts. Most of us have 7 cervical vertebrae. Some of us might get an extra one or have 6. Most of us have ribs that start on the thoracic spine. After 7 cervical vertebrae, we have 12 with ribs attached, but some of us have ribs on a couple of the cervical vertebrae too. Most of us have 5 lumbar vertebrae, but some of us have 6, or some of us have 4 because the 5th one has merged with the sacrum. Most of us have a fused sacrum composed of several different bones, 3 bones joined together, but some of us have space in them. Some of us even have all of our organs on the mirror opposite side of our bodies, right? Where the heart kind of tilts to the right and the spleen is on the right and the liver's on the left. It blows my mind that exists. And it comes with some health issues, obviously, but like this kind of variation internally is the norm. Why would it be different for our neurotypes?
Yeah.
Why would it be different for our behavior in the world and our impulses? And so if what I'm actually, I think, saying is that variation is the norm. And the last thing, and this is where now I'm going to tie the ribbon on what we were talking about before, between neurodiversity and queerness. The last thing is, if you have a cervical rib, that actually ups the odds for finding an extra lumbar vertebrae or another congenital variation, because the presence of one variation is predictive of further variations.
Makes sense.
Right? You don't usually have just one, you usually have a couple. Well, so I have a variant off of the standard typical of being queer. I also have some variants off of the standard typical in terms of how I conceptualize the world, process information, and create categories to sort the world into.
Mm-hmm.
I also have some physiological anatomical variants, like my arms don't go all the way straight. That's as straight as my arm goes. And I have some developmental variations. And the presence of one is predictive for the presence of others, which for me neatly explains why we see a somewhat elevated correlation between queerness and neurodiversity, but also why we see a dramatically increased correlation between specifically neurodiversity and connective tissue disorders and other kinds of physical variations, because the presence of one is predictive for the others.